Good morning, everyone. This is Charan here, and I am working on prepping some mugs, but I need to set up something first so you can actually. Don't you just hate it when you have to log into everything over and over again? Hopefully, this works. I'm just going to post my live link on Patreon so the Patreon members can know that I am currently live. And there is that. And prepping slabs for bugs. And let's publish now. Now. Okay, I think that's there. Hopefully, how's the YouTube doing? Yeah. Okay. Can everyone hear me? You can see me now. Good. Good morning, Lorraine. How are things going? I haven't seen you in a long time. Hope you're doing well and spinning and playing with fiber, knitting, and all the things. Hey, Kimberly. So I'm actually prepping up all these slabs so that I can turn them into bugs. Lorraine says she's been off the radar job hunting. Oh, yeah, can be a process, but hang in there. I'm trying to get mugs done so that I have them for a show, that's a virtual show that I'm doing next weekend, which is Knit City. So you can go on Knit City's website if you just Google Knit City. It's Canada based, but they're doing a virtual show this year. So I decided to take part in that. So I'm going to be there on Friday at noon Pacific time. So Kimberly says, no spinning lately, a lot of sewing on Kantha quilts. Oh, isn't that the most amazing experience? So Lorraine asks, do you plan on attending any shows on the East Coast? East Coast is really pushing it right now. I'm kind of, being doubtful of whether I'll be able to even do shows in Oregon because of Casper's injury. I need to, somebody needs to attend him. Um, my wife's at home, but it still takes. Sometimes it takes two people to take care of certain things. So I'm Trying to avoid travel. I might, I don't know, but if things happen, they happen. And so I'm doing the virtual show next weekend, but then I'm really preparing inventory for the Red Order show, which is a local show. It's going to be my first in person show since the pandemic started. So that's mid February. So there's actually not much time. I'm like only 2, 3 weeks away. I have so much stuff to make. And especially with another show in between, even though it's virtual, if you sell stuff, you kind of need to fill up inventory for another show that's coming up. So I'm hoping I can have stuff ready and make as many pieces as possible. That's the current plan. So Kimberly, talking about Kantha quilts, I absolutely love Kantha quilts, but it's just I was having trouble earlier with doing the big stitch quilting, but I eventually got the hang of it, and I did. I don't know if you saw my last quilt that I'd done, one of the last ones. It's not traditionally the Kantha Kawadi style, but it has those big Kantha stitches that you see, which I absolutely love it, and especially after washing, the texture that gives is just screams comfort. Oh, thank you, Kimberly. She says you make beautiful quilts. I try, and then there are always these ideas for making something new. Like this morning, I was up at 4:30. I'm actually currently working on a quilt I started on a workshop with Irene Roderick. Uh, you all must be, if you're a quilter, you're probably familiar with her work, or an improv quilter. You are most definitely familiar with her work. So she had a workshop using only two colors. And my quilts. Um, there's nothing two color about my quilts. The more color, the better. So I thought this would be a good workshop to really, force me into using just two colors. And it's been challenging. I'm chugging along, but I'm kind of and now it's a very fun workshop where you just kind of keep making these components and hope they all kind of come together somehow. And the workshop is called Dancing with the Wall, and we are literally dancing with the wall throughout. So that these last few days, like it was kind of very arbid, like it was very abstract, and it had some interesting shapes and stuff going with whatever I was making with it. But it's just been on the design wall, and I keep moving them around. Oh, Kimberly says she makes kimono jackets from that. Oh, that's a nice practical use of them. I bet my wife would like one of those. She keeps saying, "What are we gonna do with so many quilts?" Like even my dog has a quilt, and he tries to claim more quilts every time. But it's like, do we really need that many quilts? But a kimono jacket sounds fun. Anyway, the quilt that I'm working on with from Irene's workshop in two colors finally started taking a certain shape. I started seeing some images come out from it, which I wasn't expecting. Like it wasn't planned. I'm just moving some of these Arbit blocks around. And now I'm finally getting into the groove of it. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it gets finished. So I have a few more pieces. I think we have a live meeting coming up soon with a group that attended the workshop. I would like to show some of the progress I've made, but that requires a lot of time. Since all that quilting, doesn't have a pattern or anything, It's not like you can just sit at it and go at it and it'll be done. Um, you kind of have to keep playing around with it, and like you can make the components and then you're just playing around with the wall and see how it all fits together. Okay, this is the file of the lace mugs. One of my favorite textures. I like it in the wet clay itself. Very fun to touch too. So yeah, it's like I cannot wait to get to that quilt and finish it, but I need to make mugs. I keep getting distracted. And this morning I was up at 4:30 and I thought that, oh, I'm going to, work on that quilt, see how it goes. But then there was some clay work I needed to be done. So that one thing led to another and I'm just working along. Check real quick. Um, Everything takes forever sometimes. Okay, this is something I might need to read. Hey, Maram from Transylvania. Thank you for joining in. As you can see, I'm prepping my clay slabs to make mugs. So Maram asked, why do you flatten the rim? So if you see, the rim is like this perpendicular kind of, straight surface here. That does not make for a very good surface to drink from. However, um, this piece hasn't been fired, but like once I flatten it, it gives a nice smooth surface, and then I also turn it a little bit, out, so it feels good on the lips, and it makes it a much better drinking utensil. So the rim of a piece is extremely important so that you don't, like if I just made the mug like this, you would land up either cutting your lip or you would land up, dribbling if there's too much texture on that top surface. So, like, try making a mug which has a lot of texture to the very top. It will dribble. You kind of need a nice place for your lips to sit on the rim of a mug. And plus, it looks nicer too. It kind of gives a nice finish to the top edge of the mug. So that's the reason why I trim up the top and flatten it so that, you know, it gives that nice smooth surface. And so when I flatten it, also what happens is, rather than you saw that a real sharp rectangle edge, right? That kind of gets softened up. So now it's like a lot more roundish. So a lot more comfortable to drink from. Very important aspect for making functional pottery. And again, you don't have to. It just does. For me, it doesn't make it a very good drinking utensil. Hope that answers your question. Ram says thanks. Well, I'm glad that helped. Let me know if you have any other questions. We can chat about them while I get all this work done. And it's also for the same reason I flatten the side edges too. It's just so that I get a cleaner place to join my mugs. And I don't hide my seams. My seams stay as they are. So I don't know if some of you saw my Facebook post this morning. Um, I have been contemplating for quite some time, almost more than a year, probably even before that. But in the last year, I've been thinking about it a lot about teaching online workshops uh, for clay, for spinning, for whatever I do. So if you have any interest in that, do let me know. And you can actually go to my website, which is on the screen there, creativewithclay.com, and you can sign up for my newsletter there. And whenever that happens, you'll get information about it. So Maram asked, I heard you say in one of your videos, these are production mugs. What does that mean? Do you people make mugs that are not production? What I mean by calling them production mugs is that I make many of the same kind, meaning that like if they are listed on my website, they are not listed as like I won't be taking a picture of each mug that I've made and post it there because they all look so similar. Like the lace mugs would be lace. The pattern of the lace would be slightly different from every mug, as you can see, but they still kind of look pretty similar to each other. So I have like one picture which kind of gives you an idea of what the lace mug will look like. And when you place an order, anyone places an order for a lace mug on my website, they'll get one of the lace mugs in the color that they choose. But it's highly possible that, the color will be slightly different, the pattern will be slightly different, and I call it a production mug because those pictures and everything are just, like stock pictures. They are not like the picture of the actual mug that you're purchasing. If you do want to see a picture of the actual mug or whatever I have in stock, let me know. I'm glad to send pictures of that. But it becomes a very time-consuming picture for process for me. Like if like all my plain stockinette mugs, they kind of look so similar that I won't be able to tell the difference from one to the other. I don't see the point of taking a picture of each and every mug and putting it there, and they're all looking exactly the same. But they're not exactly the same. But you know what I mean. That there is going to be variation, but it's kind of hard to tell one from the other. Like I would go crazy myself trying to tell now which honey-colored mug was purchased. So it's um, it's one of those things that's why I call them production mug because I'm not listing them on my website as each single mug. Um, there are other pieces that are not like this, where uh, my one of a kind pieces and stuff. Those I don't call production because there is no speculation as to how many more I'm going to make, or if I'm going to make exactly the same kind, or if I'm out of it, if you place an order, will you get something like that? So there is nothing like that in those pieces. So those I don't consider as like full mass production work. This is kind of like I feel it's almost like making the same thing over and over again, and they're all kind of looking the similar. So I have used the term production for these mugs, and it's mostly because of that. I mean, everything is production. And like you said, do people make mugs that are not production? Actually, there are. I have seen mugs which are so completely unique in itself. Like each mug is a work of art in itself. That they just make one of them and that's it. And they sell it at a higher price, which is understandable. If there's so much work that goes into one, and there's never going to be another one like it, so they can ask that price tag for it. But I kind of like to stay in this range that I have. We'll see how things progress. Like if I made a very complex mug and I have some plans and but I always have ideas to do certain things. So if something like that does happen and I do make, maybe even I might make some one of a kind mugs. So one can make whatever they want and however they want to sell it and however they want to call it, right? I hope that answered your question. I hope I understood your question. Okay, these last three here, and then I have to start actually shaping the walls of these mugs. Okay, last mug. Okay, so that was trimming all the mugs. I have 48 mugs all trimmed up, and I was hoping by this morning I would even form the walls of it. I don't think I'll get to all of them because we do have an appointment for my dog Casper going for some hydrotherapy. That nice and clean. I'm going to start. Maram asked, how big was your first kiln? My first kiln was not very big, and my second kiln is also not very big. It's a standard 7 cubic foot, which is like, I think it's 20 inch, it takes 20-inch round shells. Yeah, it's 20 or 22 inches, I'm forgetting. 20 or 21, somewhere around that. And, um, it comes to up my chest. It's kind of like the standard size kiln, which many people have, 7 cubic foot. I do have an NNL kiln. That was the first one I purchased and absolutely loved it. Then around 5 years, 5 or 6 years, 5 years back, I purchased another kiln, exactly the same size, same brand, LNL, because I love their kilns. So easy to change the elements and do everything. 7 cubic feet. Let's ask Siri. Hey Siri, how much is 7 cubic feet in cubic meters?
7 cubic feet is equivalent to about 0.198 cubic meters.
Okay, so 0.2 cubic meters. 22 inches is like, huh, so confusing. You're confusing me. Okay. Okay, Siri, how much is 22 inches in centimeters? Hey Siri, how much is 22 inches in centimeters?
22 inches is 55.88 centimeters.
So yeah, it takes shells which are 55 centimeters round, and it's like up to my chest. So you kind of get an idea. I can hold like 50 mugs easily in one side. I need some tools here to start forming my mugs now. It's a bigger mat. Does that make sense? Those metric measurements? So it's almost like the width of this table. That's the size of shelf. And like I said, I can hold 50 mugs in there, like for glazing, more when I'm doing the bisque firing because I can stack stuff. But just a few more, it's not a big difference. Since my mugs don't go inside one another, there's not that much space to do them stacking. Okay, let me just check. Just making sure I'm not missing anything important. Oh, in Europe they're measured in liters. That's interesting. I would never even think about measuring in liters. Like, because a liter is such a, well, even cubic feet and cubic meters are volume measurements, even liters is, but it's like, I see it so much as like how much liquid is held in something. So because I'm not pouring liquid in, I kind of want to know it dimensionally how much it's going to be. So if I say 7 cubic feet, you kind of have, an idea by this feet, by this feet, by this feet. That's the amount of space. But but yeah, that's weird that they do use liters. Okay. On to the next step. Chugging along, otherwise this work will never get done, right? I have my sponges ready here and my tools that I need here. I use a scoring tool and I use a rib to score up my place and make the marks. And I also use a rolling pin, a flat rolling pin, which is flat on both sides. That's it. And then while hand building, I'm not, uh, I don't use any slip as such. It's just plain water. It works pretty well for my clay. I haven't had the need to use slip. And I think I have some air pockets in this one, which is going to be annoying. I might have to trash this piece. I think that should be fine. But if it's not, we'll have another mark added to our second spile. Uh, so 7 cubic feet is almost 200 liters according to code. That's almost the biggest kiln here. Oh wow. Yeah, it's very relative. I remember several years back, means I was working in clay out here, and I was just kind of, we were just going through this idea of, what if we move to India and, I pursue clay over there? I could have some helpers there and do something. This was several years back. It was just like this, wondering whether it's something I would be interested in or not. So I connected with several potters in India and said that, hey, I would like to come there, speak to you guys, see your setups, how you all work, and advantages, disadvantages for me doing something like this, just to talk with people. And there was somebody I met, forgetting her name now, but she was so excited. She was like, I'm so glad, you're welcome to come here. And I'm super excited because you're coming at a perfect timing since I just got a new kiln. And it's such a big kiln compared to what I had before. And I'm glad, you'll be there and we can show it off to you and everything. And I was like, sure, yeah. And she was very nice and everything. So planned to go there. And when we reached the place, I was quite amazed that it was. So this was in Mumbai, which is a big city where we all know property in Mumbai is just insane. And the address she gave me was like of an apartment building, and I'm like, oh, so she has a studio in an apartment. That's interesting. So, and it was like on the fifth floor or something. So we go up to the fifth floor, and then I forgot to score that in. So we go to the fifth floor, and she's like in this two-room kind of apartment. And in the first room, she had like close to 8 to 10 employees. These are small rooms, like maybe 10 by 20 feet rooms. So in one room, she had like 8 to 10 employees. There were these small, almost 4 inch, not 4 inch, but I would say maybe 10 to 12 inch, and not more than 12 inch, white tables running along the length of the room. And these guys were sitting facing the wall, and they were making all these tiles and small stuff with clay. And she said she does mostly, small things like coasters and things like that. And they were just chugging along, making the stuff, and it was like packed, like in such a small space. There were so many people. And then the other room was basically her office with some inventory and places for her to have a meeting and samples and things like that. So we walked through the first room where the employees were, and then we walked into the other room where she was, and we had a chat and talked about how it is. And I was so surprised that she manages that, her business out here. And I reminded her. I said, "Oh, and let's go outside and see a big kiln." And she was like, "Oh, it's not outside. It's here." And I'm like, "Where?" I couldn't even see it. It was actually in the first room where all those 8 employees were sitting. Her big kiln was 1 cubic feet, which is basically 12 inches by 12 inches by 12 inches. It was a square kiln. So it was like this much by this much by this much. That's it. And um, that was a big kiln for her. And she said that ever since she got it, she was very excited in the beginning because, when we talked, she was like, it's here and she's going to work with it. But she said that she's having the hardest time because since the electric bills are high, uh, the electric company is threatening to shut down her business because of that one tiny kiln. She's paying her bills and everything, but it's like for an apartment building, you cannot be consuming that much power, and it tends to like shut down the power of the rest of the apartments and stuff like that. And that's just that one tiny one. I would say it's tiny, but again, like I said, it's relative that to some people, 1 cubic feet is a very big kiln. So, like you say, my 7 cubic feet in the US, when people come to my studio and see my kiln, they usually say that how can you create so much work in that tiny kiln? So, so yeah, like I said, it's all relative. To some people, a 7 cubic feet kiln is huge, and to some, that is really tiny. Like people here, I know they have 20 and 30 cubic feet kilns, with carts rolling in and stuff. And I'm not talking about, big group settings. These are like individual potters that have kilns like that. But my work is not that big, so that's one reason why I don't need big kilns. And at the same time, even though, I'm kind of a production potter, but not that much in production. Like I make 50 mugs, on a weekly basis sometimes. But I don't go about, you know, making like those 50, like I won't make 50 mugs every day. I'll make it once a week. Those production potters are making like 500 mugs a day or something. So throwing them on the wheel or whatever, and I I don't enjoy making work like that. So I like the way I do things. It's slower. Maybe it's slower, but I get the effect I want. I like the textures that I like in my work, and I can't achieve this by throwing on the wheel. So That's why I don't throw on the wheel that much. Maramas, do you use the wheel at all? I don't anymore. I used to. I used to actually, when I started with clay, I used to just throw on the wheel, and then I used to alter my pieces a lot. And then at some point, I just started hand building. I liked it so much that I just prefer it now. Um, Ever so often, like I used to make bowls, and they were very popular. And now it's like if I have some of my the repeat customers, and um, they message me and they say, okay, we have had your bowls for like 6 years, and now some of them are really showing age, and we would add more to the collection and stuff. Then I'll make some bowls for people like that. But in general, I don't now sit on the wheel. I hardly sit on the wheel. I sometimes do use a wheel to make certain components of certain pieces I make, but that's like very rarely. It's not a common occurrence. And I remember when I started with clay, I was throwing on the wheel, and I was like, that's all I want to do. I just want to be throwing on the wheel all the time. And I think once I kind of started selling my work, and then especially selling to galleries and things like that, it kind of became really hard for me to do that kind of production work on the wheel. So I kind of like the hand building aspect that, all these mugs are, going to be the same size, very close to the same size. There's always variation. But for me, it was hard to do that on the wheel. Because I did manage, but I didn't enjoy doing it on the wheel like that. I found it more stressful to make similar items on the wheel. But with hand building, that's not an issue. At least for me. Some people might find hand building really time consuming, and well, it is time consuming, I think. But also, they would find it hard to make, steady pieces with which are alike. It all depends from person to person. I just kind of felt this was a more comfortable way for me to work. The other tool that I use a lot, and that is what my post on Facebook this morning was about, was workshops using the extruder. So I have a wall mounted extruder, which essentially takes a die underneath and you push clay through it and you get your shapes and you can manipulate them to make your different pieces. So I'm planning to have some workshops recorded for that, or do live sessions and mix of the two. So I'm kind of working on that, and I kind of wanted to get an idea from people if there is any interest at all. And I got a pretty good response, so I am going to work towards that in some shape or form. I still need to decide on details, but at least now I know that there is good interest, right? That's what you find out first. I don't want to do all that work for nothing. I knew there was always interest in there. Like I keep getting emails of people asking, and but if I have to be transported somewhere to teach a workshop, I need to take the extruder with me and all my tools and everything. And now with online teaching getting so popular, I was like, I I can do this at home, and you can be in the studio with me like you are right now and get to learn things. So I'm gonna give that a try. So if you want to be on that mailing list or whatever, you can just go to my website and sign up for the regular mailing list. And so when anything new comes up like that, you will be the first to know. And you can sign up. So on my boards, I can fit 7 mounts, and I usually get around 48 to 49 mounts, so they fit pretty well on 7 boards. Uh, so Madam asks, what are the surfaces you like working on, as in wood, plasterboard, and so on? So I like working actually on this material out here, which essentially is a thick canvas, but it's not exactly. I'll show you exactly what it is. Um, it's the material that's used in printing. Um, so, any place that uses a printing press, they have these rubberized mats. And so on the other side of this mat is, it's like a thick rubberized surface. And on this side is a very uh, tightly woven canvas material. So I'll show that to you. So it's like this. So this is the part which is actually used for the printing process. And now in this you cannot see anything, but maybe you can see some lines here. But like when I got them, they had marks of, like printing of soup labels and things like that. So this is what they use, and pressurize them and make it go through rollers and use it for printing on for production printing in factories and stuff. So and this side is this very fine. You probably cannot even see the texture of the canvas because it's so smooth. Um, so the clay doesn't stick onto this. It's easy to clean up. It doesn't leave a texture on the clay. So it's really good for that purpose. But yeah, and so what happens is they are kind of a little hard to come by because they use them for their printing. But ever so often, if you know of a place that does this kind of printing, get in touch with them because they keep discarding these often. Because after a certain number of prints that it goes through the machines, they wear out or there is damage on the surface, on the rubberized surface, which actually we don't even use. At least I don't use that surface. So you can, um, you know, find the printing place and ask them if they have these that are damaged, which they're looking to discard, and get a hold of some. I found this one company up in Vancouver, BC, actually, a few years back. So went there, got a bunch of them. I got actually a lot of them, so I kept some for myself, and then the rest I landed up selling to whoever else wanted them. All the potters were quite happy with those. So I did sell some of them, but now I have some which I use, but they also really last forever. Like the one which is there, so I use it even on my slab roller. They come in really big pieces. So I roll my slabs between two sheets of this as well. So I don't use like a regular canvas because that again leaves texture and gets wrinkled and stuff. But because this has that thick rubberized surface on the back of it, it doesn't wrinkle as much. Well, it doesn't wrinkle at all. And I've been using that same rubberized sheet, I would say 2004, 16, 17, 18 years now. And I've not changed it. It hasn't been damaged, nothing's happened. Even all these sheets, they're probably just as old. I don't like working on plaster surfaces. I don't like working with plaster. Means I have made some slip molds and stuff like that, and that's just about it that I can stand when it comes to working with plaster. And as far as surface is concerned, I would like a plaster surface maybe to dry my clay if I was like throwing on the wheel and I had that big wet sloppy mess. But because you saw my scraps are, with hand building, they are just like the clay consistency. I can just throw this in the pug mill and recycle it. I don't need to, do the whole wet it and mix it and then dry it and all that stuff. That is if you want to recycle clay that's thrown on the wheel. And I've actually found that clay isn't even very good to recycle because all the fine particles get washed off in the water. However, with hand building, all this clay still has all the fine particles and everything in it because I wasn't like removing those particles away. They're all still in it. So I can just use it and the clay that comes out is perfect to use again. And hand building, there is a lot of scrap clay, like you saw all those pieces that I removed. And while throwing on the wheel, if you're a really good thrower, you probably don't even have much to trim, and you can make a really, use up all the clay to make the mud. But I can recycle all that clay, so I don't worry about it too much. It takes time. It's a process even recycling. Even though I have a pug mill, it takes time to do it, and it's not a big capacity one. But I'll sit for a week, and all I'll do is just recycle clay. Um, Usually land up. I think the whole of 2020, I just used recycled clay because I had not been recycling for quite some time. So I don't like to throw away the clay because it's not good for the environment and plus it's perfectly fine clay. Rather than just adding to the landfill and it's not doing anything there. I don't think it actually even damages anything to the environment because it is just clay, but I would rather just use it. It's perfectly fine for that. And in fact, I like the recycled clay a lot more than the clay that comes out from the bag because it ages and it gets more plastic. So I can actually roll slabs a lot thinner if I wanted to. Like I roll to a certain thickness because the mugs need to be of a certain weight and size that I like. But if I wanted, like there are some sculptural pieces I do where I make the clay pieces almost feel like fabric. For that, I like to roll really thin pieces of clay, and I do that always with the recycled clay. Because it's just so manipulative. I can keep stretching it on the slab roller and I can keep making the piece thinner and thinner and it doesn't crack or anything. And then I can take it and manipulate it just like a piece of fabric and it just stays just as good. Doesn't crack or anything. The fresh clay actually I cannot make it so thin because it's not aged enough to be plastic. Maramash, do you use fresh clay for handles? Yes. For handles, I always use fresh clay. That's the thing for which I always insist I use fresh clay because it's the whole pulling action and stuff makes it easier. And if I was throwing on the wheel also, I think I would prefer fresh clay. Um, but I've used recycled clay for throwing on the wheel. I don't like using the recycled clay for pulling handles though. There is, there always can be some, not air pockets, but there can be some impurities or something because there's just so much action in pulling that clay that even a little bit of that just lands up making a ruined handle. So for my handles, I always use fresh clay. Yeah, during the pandemic, when it started in 2020, I got 500 pounds of fresh clay. I usually buy in 500-pound batches, and I use that clay only for handles. For everything else, I used my recycled clay, and I'm like, no, I'm saving all this fresh out of the bag clay only for handles. Wow, the rim on this one is really thin. Yeah, let's see if it survives. It should be fine, but I don't know how I got the rim so thin. I do like a little extra meat on the rim. Not extra, but it needs to have a certain weight. Just makes a more stable mug and less chance of it chipping. I have three more mugs here, and I think I'll do that. Maybe I'll do two more. Madam asks, how do you get the knitted yarn texture on the clay? So that is a very complex process. Uh, it does not involve real knitting, which is what many people assume, that I take a piece of knitted fabric and stick it onto the clay or something. I actually carve the negative of this texture on a slab of clay, and I carve it in such a way that once you push the clay on it, that it looks like knitted texture. So it's actually all hand carved to get that master slab. But once I've created that, then I can make multiple pieces out of it. So that's kind of like my process, and which what makes the pieces unique. They don't have that machine look of knitted fabric. It looks like hand knitting, like all the stitches, because they are kind of hand carved. Um, and I made multiple slabs of them. So when I apply the texture, each one is kind of slightly different from the other. So it's not like a very monotonous, exactly the same look also. But yeah, that's my basic process. And then the lace pattern and all those other patterns are kind of done in a similar way. Like I might use, like for the lace pattern, I remember I used a piece of, I first knitted the lace, but that was mostly to kind of find the placement of the pattern as to how to carve it. But I still had to hand carve the whole thing. Otherwise, I don't get the texture I need. That is the very painstaking part of the whole process, the hand carving to get the texture. And you have to go through the entire steps of, making the texture, making the mug, glazing it, because in every step of the process, the surface changes. So there have been many, many, many failed experiments. Okay, I have two more mugs out of these 16. So I have like groups of 16 mugs, and I have three groups of 16 mugs. I was hoping to do all of them. I'm just done with one set. Well, I did 14 mugs. Like I told you, I can have only 7 mugs on my board. So 14 mugs gone there. The two extra mugs, I'm just going to start with these. So when I'm ready to make these mugs, I can just use that. But the rest of the mugs, I'm going to deal with later. All right. I'm going to sign off. Hope I answered all your questions, Maram. And feel free, to check out my website, creativewithclay.com, and follow me on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. I'm Charan Sachar at Instagram. So hope to see you around. And yeah, go to the website, sign up for my newsletter so you know when, I'll be teaching workshops. Those will be, actual workshops, which should be a lot detailed, going through the entire process of certain pieces I'm planning on teaching. So feel free to sign up there. All right. Take care. Bye.